Hello, ladies and gents, and it, they, them, and whatever you wish your pronoun to be, we gladly accept it here at the Dr. Zeero Free Magic Secrets Show. And today's subject is returning to the tarot. And just a few small items that I'd like to go through. There is a book by an author named Ellen Cannon Reed. And this book originally came out, I believe it was called The Goddess and the Tree. And it was re-released as a book called The Witch's Qabalah. Spelled without the H, right? So Qabalah. And the reason why dropping the H usually signifies that it's like a hermetic thing. So this is her kind of anarchist, rebellious, taking the framework of the Qabalah and presenting it to witchcraft in the most anarchic way possible. And this is, we were talking about Aleister Crowley earlier, who built his Thelemic version of Qabalah with the Book of Thoth and all that on making it more of a original anarchist primal sort of way of doing it. She actually does not add any of her own baloney into this. She strips the Qabalah all the way to its core, and while the cover art isn't fantastic, this book, I've seen it creeping around for a long time. I believe it was released in the mid-90s at some point. And it's an extremely great introduction to tarot and the Qabalah. And again, we'll repeat this. If you don't know, the tarot are educational flashcards for the Qabalah and the Tree of Life. The spheres of the Qabalah are the 1 through 10 of the regular suits, and all the paths connecting them are the tarot trumps. I know you're sick of hearing that, but many people just aren't aware, and that's the major key to make it all work. So we have this book called The Witch's Qabalah, and what's really interesting about it is that she gets right to the primal essence of all of these things and speaks like in a plain American in so many ways. So I'm just going to go and read from the chapter that is about Netsach, or Netsach. It's known as Venus. It's number 7 on the Tree of Life. It's the green sphere. Okay. Now, the one thing I wanted to say before leading into this is that if you read about the Qliphoth, the evil, shadow tree, and its mirror reflection, the tree of life, you see that what the Leviathan is. The Leviathan, the biblical thing. Yeah, the big dragon. It's like the serpent forever eating its own tail, the Ouroboros, basically. And the idea is it's like the Leviathan is basically like a circle. And kind of the way they see it is like if the Jewish people have a lot, when they talk about shells, the Qliphoth, they kind of like look at all of that. They describe it as excrement. Mostly. That's what they say, shells. It's kind of like the seen as the poop of the universe. So basically what Leviathan is seen as like the God took a poop and then it landed in a big old like lagoon of poop. And then the big splish splash came out, and then the splash went so high and far into creation that it kind of like soiled the normal tree of life, but it never gets higher than the sphere of Venus. It can't touch the sun. So basically all the pathways of magic that can be black magic or malefic paths of black magic are all concentrated below the sun. There is no black magic that actually ascends any higher on the tree of life beyond that. So that's why when we talk about Venus, it's like the last stage that could possibly be quote unquote infected by the dark forces of chaos and everything that's unnatural and demonic and such. And again, when we talk about demons in this sense, we're not talking about the cool heavy metal Satan that does guitar solos or Hollywood stuff or freaking out Christians and laughing because they're easily shocked. We're talking about true metaphysical evil. We're talking about the reverse Mars standing for sadistic mass murder in revenge. We're talking about Gamaliel, the moon, as representing the complete opposite of the mothering instinct, as for like eating your own children, because that's what it's really about. That's why it's true metaphysical evil. It's the converse of everything that's healthy and normal about the universe. So if that's kind of the idea here, is that so if the womb is holy, and that's what the moon presents, and motherhood and all these things, then the thing that keeps it holy is the fact that when you eat your own children and commit these acts of abomination, we know they're acts of abomination, that they're deeply ingrained with us. There's a deep gut instinct that it's wrong to do this stuff. And this is a whole smorgasbord of activities. So this is what the lunar Lilith actually represents. And people might not like to hear that, but that's what's going on. When you talk about the Qliphoth, you talk about the stages. Malkut is just the barbarity of the world. The next step up is the moon, and that's the everything against the mothering instinct. And then when you get to Mercury, which is the fusion of pansexuality, it's like that and absolute chaos and complete odds. And it's sort of it's not productive. On the tree of life, it's Mercury and Hermes and lightning fast thought and thought. It's about confusion and schizophrenia and stuff. It's the reverse of having clear thoughts, and going up the chain. And so one of the interesting things about this is that when people say that all the deities that people work with in paganism or heathenism or in the Goetic, any of these traditions, they say that the tree of life has no place for them. Well, the thing is, the tree of life, the Sephiroth, really represent different kinds of magic that we all have, very huge centers of magic that we can all possess. And Venus is the realm where all of these deities in our subconscious and archetypes supposedly dwell. It's their home, right? That's what most people don't understand. That's how the Jews see it. They see it, if the sun is the center, the sun is the heart, right? Moving on beyond that, that's where all the thoughts start to begin. It's sort of like you could see the tree of life, like I said before. It's the soul of the universe, like the mirror, the soul of the universe, the energy behind the universe, and then you have the physical outpour, which corresponds to it in like material terms. But when we look at the actual glyph of the Qabalah, it's all seen as like a spiritual electrical source, like what's right before the Big Bang that's about to pour out. So you can look at all these things conducting in that sense from microcosm, macrocosm, in all kinds of ways. So So this is why the sphere of Venus is so interesting and important. The main essence that is usually talked about is it makes you feel like a champion, like it's this exalted state. And the incense that's used to bring that perfect like psychological tone out of someone are the sandalwoods. And the sandalwoods are what are used in also all the India, the temples in India, all the monks and everything, and they see it in China, and also all the ninjutsu, Shinto, all of the martial arts, Aikido. They all use that as a sacred scent because like there's something about it. It makes you feel like at a very exalted state where you're like at the top of your own psychic game, right? It's like this crazy peak you hit. Like, say you ever been like wide awake at like 4 a.m, even if you're by yourself and you're just so amazed you're alive and you got tons of CDs around you, you just want to listen to tons of music and you just can't go to sleep. It's just, you feel like on fire, even though you're so tired, you can never sleep. And it's just like, you feel alive, like this crazy, like it's spring, like this exalted state, feeling like a champion. You just beat that video game you tried to beat forever. You just figured out the puzzle. You just finally made love to who you wanted to make love to forever, whatever it be. This is like the champion feeling. So this is from that sense, this is like the last that any kind of demonic energy could theoretically touch you. That's the last sphere of that it could possibly infect, because the sun is the next level up, and the sun is like pure white light personified as the middle of the thing, and it's the heart. So it's sort of no matter what, like the true metaphysical evil can never defeat the sun. That's kind of the idea. And I guess rabbis would explain it maybe a little different or whatever. But again, my viewpoint is much like this book. I'm talking about Kabbalah from more of an anarchic viewpoint, where you cut out all the mythology and just get to the primal basics of it. So without further ado, here we go. This is, again, Ellen Cannon Reed from The Witch's Qabalah. And this is about Venus, chapter 9. For behold, all acts of love and pleasure are my rituals. So the next sphere, Netsach, lies on the pillar of force and represents victory. Victory in the sense of achievement. In her coven, which uses the tree of life as a framework for development, it is after work with Netsach that a student reaches first degree. And this would make sense. Like I said, from there on, it's all upwards. This requires so much work and time that it truly does represent quite an achievement. Netsach is emotion, love in all forms. Its pagan mythology includes Venus, Aphrodite, Hathor, and Rhiannon. Its planetary attribution is naturally Venus. This makes Netsach seemingly easy to understand, but this is not necessarily so. The archangel of this sphere is Hanael, who is a patron of the arts. His angels are the Elohim. As you've learned, this word can be translated as goddess gods. How can gods and goddesses be angels, quote unquote? They are not, of course. What is represented here is the energy of the image we have given each deity in our mind. Again, repeat, this is the key of this entire sphere of Venus. Number 7 on the tree of life, the green one. So just repeat. How can gods and goddesses be quote-unquote angels in that sense? Well, they are not. But what is represented here is the energy of the image we have given each deity in our mind. It's like where we're storing the archetypes that we create, or the archetypes. It's their home planet. That's the importance here. And also understanding that Venus is green, it's luscious, and it's seen as like the mother nature sort of principle. It's like life blowing for you. So it's just endless flora just pumping through the mud, just living everywhere, mold, everything. It doesn't matter. So it is in Netsach that the pure deity energy is actually broken into the various aspects of the Lord and Lady with which you are familiar. The energy, that is, not the forms. They come later. So it's like the energy, like the phantasms of the deities, almost. Netsach is like a prism which divides light into rainbow colors. Perhaps I should explain here my own view of the universe. Again, this is the author, not me. Some see Wicca as a duotheistic religion, that is, a religion which teaches there is one god and one goddess, of whom all others are aspects. Others see each of the deities as separate individuals. Hecate is not the Morrigan, is not Kali. She says she doesn't fit into either category. She believes there is a oneness, and that includes everything. Gods, goddesses, planets, trees, birds, worms, everything, including humankind. The gods and goddesses are a part of that oneness, and they are as individual as we are. So we're talking about how obviously Christianity can never absorb the Kabbalah in its truest form, and they can get things out of it, but you have to. It does not teach that Jesus is everything. So that's the problem with Christianity in a Christian Kabbalah, right? That's the endless train wreck we run into there. Everything. So, but if you look from the Jewish perspective of the YHVH and all this ancient magic stuff, all the gods of ancient magic still fit into this diagram. They still have their place. And if you read things like the Greek magical papyri, it's very clear that the ancient wizards, the real ancient wizards who wandered the worlds of old Egypt and Greece, were not only just trying to conjure Hecate, but were also relying on YHVH, on Yahweh. They were all open. And the Jewish people as well, that's how they kind of saw this as well. Like there's only one big source, but all these gods, I guess, are all kind of scrunched down there. So anyway, she continues in plain American. I heard another way of expressing this on the television show Babylon 5. See, this is why she's a great writer. She speaks our language. One of the alien characters, a Minbari, was explaining their spiritual philosophy. Briefly, it was this. The universe is alive, and souls are a part of that life, sent out in order to learn. We are the universe trying to learn about itself. We came down the tree, or up it if you prefer, to learn and are working our way home back to the source, learning and growing and taking that with us. It is her feeling, therefore, that the different colors revealed by the prisms of Netsach are not only the gods, but everything else as well. Netzach's spiritual experience is the vision of beauty triumphant. All of us have touched this experience when, in a moment of great, almost unbearable beauty, we have glimpsed infinity. Having known such a moment, this experience is a knowledge that the harmony, the beauty of Tiferet will triumph. If you have touched such a moment, briefly imagine the glory of a complete spiritual experience in this sphere. Netzach's name of power is Yahweh Zabaoth. Never mind how it translates. What it means is the opposite of e pluribus unum, out of the many one. It means out of the one many. It's the reverse of what it says on our American currency. All the facets of the god and goddesses are seen in all their glorious ways through Netsach. Netsach lies at the base of the masculine pillar and is chock full of goddesses. How so? This is one of the reasons she prefers to call this pillar the pillar of force. Netsach is energy, creative energy, the energy you put into rituals to make them effective. The form of the rituals themselves comes under Hod, the next sphere, which is all about Mercury and pansexuality and fusing the self in the inner plane to be a perfect pitch of tonality, vibration. So this sphere is the spark of genius that touches us when we are being creative. It is the energy you feel when you are writing a ritual, the energy that turns it into a given ritual instead of a written one. In the book The White Goddess, Robert Graves spends 500 pages discussing the fact that no poet deserves the name unless his poetry is directed to and inspired by the goddess. 500 pages about Netsach there. Graves said that the muse that real poets and artists credit with inspiration is none other than the triple goddess. And we hear of 9 muses now, but Mr. Graves says there is only one, divided by some patriarchal chauvinist in a divide and conquer move. Netsach represents the spark which makes the difference between a craftsman and an artist, between a rhyme and a poem. Oddly enough, the very presence of this creative spark can bring about the illusion of this sphere, which is projection. Artists and poets often paint or write something that expresses feelings others have. Realizing this, the creative ones come to believe that the others share all their feelings. A little thought can reveal the kind of problems this particular illusion can cause. Another aspect of projection It's projecting your negative feelings onto others. You don't feel those things, they do. You are full of love and peace. They are the ones with anger, fear, and greed. This means, of course, that any problems are not your fault, not your responsibility. That's a lie, and you know it, or you should know it. The virtue of Netsach is unselfishness. Naturally, true love would be unselfish. Netsach's vice is unchastity. This is not an attempt to impose upon you the ethics of another religion. Unchastity or impurity do not necessarily relate to your sex life. Motives can be impure as well, remember. In order to overcome the vice of unchastity, you must first learn about yourself. You have to work up to Netsach through the spheres between it and Malkuth and learn a great deal about yourself in the process. And this isn't always easy. This is the importance of pathworking. One of the things you must learn is self-responsibility. We are responsible for everything we do, say, think, or feel. We are not the devil, not the other guy. We are yourself. For example, no one makes you mad. You allow someone to irritate you. Don't try to blame someone else for that. Don't try to deny you have those feelings either. You have them. You get angry, you get hurt, you're human. There are times when you have every right to feel the way you do. But even when your feelings are unreasonable, don't deny you have them. Don't lie to yourself. That is the worst kind of lie. Lying, especially to yourself, makes your being impure. Blaming others for what you feel is also an impurity. You must take responsibility for all you are, all you do, all you think and feel. If you don't like what you are, change it. The obligation of the sphere, responsibility, will help you overcome the vice of unchastity and the illusion of projection. A psychologist deals almost entirely with Netsach energy with her patients. Although the majority of her clients are artists and writers, those who are not benefit from art therapy as well. This psychologist friend has learned the value of positive energies of this kind, not the aspect of emotion, which, when untempered by the logic and reason of the next sphere, Hod, can result in a person totally ruled by emotion, but the creative energy of Netsach. In this psychologist therapy, she encourages her patients to just create, especially in the visual arts, painting and sculpture, etc. The quality of the artwork is unimportant to the therapy. The importance lies in the act of creation. And this is also important why you should watch some Bob Ross and try to mimic him, his earliest stuff. It'll work out great for you because now you got YouTube. You can pause it and rewind it constantly. That was the problem with Bob Ross on PBS. You couldn't do that shit. It was too fast. But now you got YouTube and you got all of them. So moving on from Bob Ross, who I'm a big fan of, and I like to paint just like him and painting little things. That's the thing. Anyway, moving on. We have much better contact with Netsach when we are children because we are freely creative. We paint, write stories and poems, and model clay solely for the joy of creating. There comes a time, however, when we become concerned with the quality of our creativity rather than the fun of creation. We worry about whether our paintings or poems are quote-unquote good or not. If they are not, by whatever standards we choose to accept, we stop creating them. We cut ourselves off from that energy. If you would develop this, the Netsach contacts, get out your paints and paint a picture just for the fun of it. Doesn't matter a jot whether it's good. You can throw it away when you're done if you like. Give it to someone. Write horrible poems or the world's worst short story. It doesn't matter. The fact is the movement of creation, the part of the mind that's stimulated. You know what I'm talking about. That's what that feeling. You know, that's what so many of us crave after, like the next fix. This is all tapping into the energy. So while you are being creative, you are touching and being touched by these energies, and that is infinitely more important than the results. So these energies are a part of you, and not using them is like not using one of your feet. Using them will touch every part of your life. It will integrate in ways you can't even imagine. And I know this to be true. For various reasons, there was a long period when this writer didn't write. This writer kept busy but had no real writing projects. Now that she's involved in revising this book, she finds things changing in other aspects of life, changing for the better. Don't ignore the Netsach energies are in you. Bring them into your life and see the changes they bring. We will learn more about that if we study Hod. I'm going to skip the Hod chapter, and I'm going to jump down to the moon real quick. This one's called Chapter 11, and the white moon among the stars. The sphere which just precedes physical being is Yesod, the foundation. Yesod is the sphere which most easily reached from physical manifestation, just as its planetary attribution, the moon, is the heavenly body most easily reached from Earth. In a sense, we live in Yesod as constantly as we live in Malkut. For Malkut, the next sphere, Earth, is physical matter, but Yesod provides the life in that matter. The attribution of the moon to Yesod means that all moon deities belong in the sphere. Luna, Hecate, Diana, Hathor, Ganesha. The faces of the moon reflect the faces of the triple goddess, waxing, full, and waning, maiden, mother, and crone. The moon in waxing and waning phases does not truly grow or shrink. Moonrise after moonrise during the waxing moon, more of her is revealed to us, parts of the moon that were always there but not illuminated. During the waning moon, more becomes hidden, moonrise after moonrise, until the moon itself cannot be seen. Yet the physical moon does not change during these phases. It presents at all times the same side, the same face. The faces are illusion, and Yesod is the sphere of illusion. Yesod is the Akasha, the astral, the etheric planes. It is in Yesod that we build our thought forms, or rather their images. We build these forms in Yesod and those images. If imbued with enough of our own creative energy, pull the energy into them from other spheres. Never forget, however, that the images in Yesod are just that, images. All our thought forms are just images until energy enters them. The mirror and the moon are connected with Yesod for good reason. Both reflect light and images. One of Yesod's titles is the treasure house of images. These supposed forms can be very misleading, and the uninformed are often led astray by accepting them as the real thing. For this, among many other reasons, the use of symbolic systems such as the Qabalah is not only useful but necessary. First, training the deeper levels of the mind to use the same symbols as the conscious mind can prevent a lot of misinterpretation. Secondly, the knowledge of the spheres beyond Yesod teaches us that images we see are only symbols of that which is greater, that which is more to the beyond than the astral plane. The name of power of Yesod is Shaddai El-Chai, usually translated Almighty Living God. Prefer maybe Almighty Living One. It is an interesting name. El does not mean God and Chai is life, but Shaddai means breasts. Yeah, it's tempted to do a paragraph or two pondering on this name, but I think I'll leave that to you. It would make a very good meditation. Yesod is the sexual plane and the fertility plane. It is in Yesod that souls enter the bodies created for them, supposedly. This falls under the jurisdiction of the angels of the sphere known as the Ashim, the souls of fire. Only one other author attributes these angels to Yesod, W.G. Gray. The rest attribute the cherubim to this sphere, and the Ashim to the next sphere, Malkut. There's the reason this writer for attributing this way, and explaining a greater deal in the next chapter, blah, blah, blah. So, to take that with a grain of salt. Just as different traditions of the craft and other similar beliefs have their own attributions of the elements, their own view of the Lord and Lady, so do Kabbalists often differ on these attributions to the Sephiroth. All any of us can do is use the attributions which, quote-unquote, feel right to us. So, again, this is the idea of Anarchic Qabalah. As long as you stay within the main parameters, it's kind of an open thing, because the bottom line is, when it comes to magic, someone just made all this shit up. That's to the Qabalah, all this stuff. It's all of it's real, it's all relevant, but it's a forced poetic explanation of the keys to the universe, and it can only give you so much, but it gives you an awful lot. So just understand, as long as you stay in the correct parameters, and that's why I know this book is great, because there's endless diagrams of the tree of life with different traditions, with the different names, all in the different spheres of how it would correlate. So the right attribution is the one that seems instinctively so, especially for you. So, for example, many decks of tarot cards in every book on ceremonial magic, except one, and many other witches contend that the weapons for air is the sword, for fire, the wand. This writer is an air wand fire sword person and always have been. Fire burns a wand. and she can't feel that a weapon is appropriate if it can be destroyed by the element it is supposed to control. That's just the author's opinion. Even some members of her coven are air sword folks, and that is their privilege. Those things are too personal for others to judge. And she has a point. The archangel of the sphere is Gabriel. Gabriel is the one that is called upon to always defeat the scarlet-haired woman of the other moon, you know? Gabriel is not always friends. That'd be a really cool movie if you had, like, Christopher Walken versus what's-her-face from Ash vs. Evil Dead. Because, you know, Ash could never figure out who Ruby was. He's so dumb. That was the biggest joke. None of them could figure it out. You know, it's like, her name's Ruby. She's Sumerian. She's the mother of demons. She wrote the book. She got red hair. She's married to Baal. You're fighting Baal with her. Can't figure it out. And I tell people, they still, I don't get it. But I'm sure anybody listens, you should get it by now. And if you just got it now, rewatch that show. It's really funny. So anyway, back to Gabriel here. You may be familiar with him as the Archangel of Water, but he is known also in Christian mythos as the Archangel who will blow the trumpet announcing Judgment Day. Oh, that's a Christian thing. I always thought that was the Jewish thing. Kind of ruins it, because Christianity just stole Judaism and then appropriated it and just made all kinds of shit up. You know, just like Aleister Crowley did with the Qabalah, as we're learning about that now. So anyway, the Qabalah may be the indirect source of this legend, just as it may be the source of the old man on the throne picture of God. So Yesod is not only the last step before physical manifestation, but the first step after the end of manifestation as well. The image of Gabriel standing over graves from which people are rising may have filtered down from the idea of the spirit leaving its now useless, tired body. Gabriel and his angels, the Ashim, guide spirits, or cherubim, as some say, or souls, if you prefer, into their physical bodies before birth and away from them after death. They are in charge of arranging or designing the forms which manifest in Melkut, the physical plane. Just as you would assume the red-haired woman, you know, on the other side would be doing the same sort of thing, hence that mythology. So, the matter itself is in Malkut, but the forces which hold it together and give it life are the Yesodic forces, because this is what we talked about as the moon, as the big magnifying glass for which all astrological powers beam down and should be seen as like a transformer. And this is the importance of witchcraft, just staring at just concentrating upon the moon and the drawing down the moon ritual and so forth. So many authorities place the underworld and its deities in Yesod, while the writer has placed them in Binah. Yesod is the first step after physical death, is where we would find ourselves after we leave our bodies behind. But this death of the body is only one ending, that we cease to be incarnate. During our time between lives, we must suffer the death of the personality, cease to be who we are in this life. She believes this to be a function of Binah, which is the number 2 sphere, way up top. Perhaps immediately after physical death, blah, blah, blah. This is... the vice of Yesod is idleness. Teachers will recognize this. How often have students who first worked very hard in their studies suddenly refused to put forth any further effort? This often passes, of course, but if it does not, the students do not advance. They remain in the treasure house of images, bemused by what they saw, accepting it as truth and nothing further. They are convinced they have found it all and do not need to travel further. There's no further need for work or study. They know it all. Not for them the uphill climb, the soul searching, the struggle to know their true self, the striving for growth and change. They have flown to the top of the mountain and see all, know all. So what she's saying is, witches of Malkuth, witches of Earth, climb higher. Go beyond the moon. It's okay. You can start to creep up. There should be ritualized magic. There should, in that large planetary sense. It's okay. We should be moving this ball farther and farther. It's okay if people want to cling to tradition and just stick with the moon. That makes sense. Okay, I'm not talking anything, but I feel like for charting the soul and charting with magic and all this, we have to keep ascending and moving further up the levels. So she says the illusion of Yesod is security. And that fits quite well with this attitude. In order to grow, you must change, and change is frightening. People at this stage believe they are secure. Their foundation is firm. They have achieved everything that is needed, and none of that frightening change is necessary. They are, of course, mistaken. Yesod is indeed the foundation, but not in the sense of a building's foundation. The dictionary defines a foundation as the basis on which something stands or is supported. The sea will support you if you float on it, but the sea is also ever-changing and moving. It is also the very foundation of life on this planet. Think about this a minute. Those at this stage are quote-unquote standing on what they think is a rock-solid foundation. They are really standing on a raft in mid-ocean. And there are storms ahead. You're in the psychic tsunami, you know? What you must do to dispel this illusion or overcome the vice of idleness is to trust. For trust is the obligation of Yesod. Those so secure, quote-unquote, in their own knowledge, which we have seen is no knowledge at all, think that they do not need to trust anyone. Now that they know it all, they do not need to depend on anyone else. That means they don't ever have to trust anyone else. If not needing to trust someone else makes you feel secure, doesn't that imply a fear of trusting? You can't live that way forever, you know. You can't just grow that way. There are many times in life when you must take chances, must make a leap of faith, must trust in someone or something, even if you've been stabbed in the back a gazillion times. The truly sad part is these people believe they have achieved the virtue of Yesod, which is independence, but independence means something more than not depending on anyone else. It means self-governance. You govern yourself. You control yourself, discipline yourself, rule yourself. But in order to govern yourself, you must come to know yourself. Yourself. That does not happen in a day. It rarely happens without work. So sometime in the future, there are experiences coming that are necessary for your spiritual growth. These experiences, as I've said before, are some of the most difficult you will ever go through, and ones from which you will learn more than you can imagine. Some will learn things about yourself you have refused to see. Some of these will be your strengths, and many will be your weaknesses, the areas you need to change. These weaknesses will be brought home to you in ways that will force you to see them. You will not be able to escape. That will you do when you discover that this self in whom you have placed all your trust has faults, isn't perfect? If this is the foundation on which you stand, you're going to find yourself standing in midair. No rock, no raft, no nothing. Think about it. If, however, your foundation is built on trust in the gods and the wisdom of your teachers and the fact that you know there is much to learn in the knowledge that even this experience is part of the natural order and that you will not only survive it but be glad it happened, you will spare yourself a great deal of pain and fear. It is to be hoped that the powers of Yesod continue to flow into those who succumb to the illusion of security and bring forth the virtue of Yesod independence. One difference between Eastern and Western philosophies is the difference in the relationship between teacher and student. In an effort to escape from self, an Eastern student is taught total blind obedience to the teacher. Within this philosophy is a valid teaching. You become one with all and begin by ceasing to think of the ego, the singular self. In Western traditions, however, students are trained to learn within their own minds, to seek the deity within, recognize it, grow toward it. Life is not avoided. It is sought out for the lessons it has to teach. One reaches for the deity within. One conquers everyday life instead of avoiding it. Independence, therefore, is a more desirable quality in a student. Questions, doubts, ideas, and thoughts should flow into the minds of a student. This time becomes a test for the teacher. In a sense, teachers are parents, and it is often difficult for parents to allow children to grow up. They feel a pang of loss when children begin to think for themselves, develop minds of their own. Parents must let go. Let children make their own decisions and their own mistakes. So often when a student and teacher first come together, the student hungers for knowledge, sits at the feet of the teacher, if only symbolically, and soaks in every word, every thought, every instruction. Teachers are human beings. And this is a wonderful feeling, the feeling of power. If we teachers have grown as we should have, we will allow our students to grow to become adults in the craft. We will give up the ego boost of having students hang on every word, depend on us for every spiritual thought. We're human. We'll feel the pain of losing that adulation, but it can be replaced by a feeling of pride as our students move forward, upward, grow, perhaps even surpass us in knowledge. So we're going to close this out real quick with chapter 15. It's called Creating Your Own Tree. It's a very simple, quick way about making, of course, a more anarchist version of the tree of life in your own image. Before you do any real work with the tree, the author suggests you create your own personal tree. Having it an easy sight so that you can study or meditate will facilitate your learning and absorption with this. She encourages you to make a big production out of the creation of your own tree. Make the drawing and coloring a ritual. If the tree is to be used by a group, the group should participate, each participant adding color to its sphere, discussing its meaning, vibrating the name of power, and whatever else will make the ritual meaningful. If the tree is for personal use, make it a private ritual, pondering the spheres as you apply the color, vibrating the deity names, etc. The effects of the ritual and the resulting tree will be enhanced if you use a medium in which colors can be mixed, rather than crayons or felt tip pens. Use the clearest, cleanest, brightest colors you can find. The brightest colors are the archangel colors. The colors for each of the four worlds are referred to as scales. Deity scale, archangel scale, so forth. The paths, if you paint them, are done in the deity colors. And this ties again into some Golden Dawn stuff where they use the king scale for the Y, the queen scale for the H, the prince scale for the V, and the princess scale for the H. And this, in her version, she's calling it deity, archangel, angelic, and planetary. Note that the deity and angelic scales are represented by masculine figures force, and the archangel and planetary scales by feminine ones form. The spheres are states of being and are therefore static and unchanging. The paths are states of becoming and therefore moving and changing, active. Therefore, use a negative or form color for the spheres and a positive force color for the paths. Ketter's archangel color is pure white brilliance. Granted, it is difficult to find a paint to express brilliance, so use the whitest white available, perhaps zinc white. This will serve even better if your background is not white, quite white. A cream or off-white will make the sphere stand out even more. All colors are included in white light. All that is to come, all that is to be, all the significance of the other colors are within white. Whatever paint you use, it will only be a poor approximation of Ketter's true meaning. But your very consideration of this as you color the sphere will be of utmost importance. Hokmah, the second, is a clean, cloud-like gray, clouds forming out of the invisible water vapor in the sky becoming visible. Binah, the third one, the Saturn, is black, preferably a flat or matte black. Black is the absence of all color, no rays are returned, nothing is bounced back. Black receives all, as Binah is the epitome of receptivity. So that's the key to make that entire left-hand pillow work. It's the epitome of receptivity. Use a pure blue for a Chesed, which is the Jupiter sphere, number 4. An equally clear red for Geburah, which is Mars, number 5. And a golden, gleaming sun yellow for Tifereth, which is the sun, number 6 in Saturn. From there, you move the primary colors to those which must be mixed. Right? It's a color chart thing that the Qabbalah's got going on here. Emerald green is the proper color for Netsach. Pure blue and pure yellow together. As you mix, striving for the color you desire, consider the significance of the two colors and the meaning of the mixture. Hod is orange, a combination of red and yellow. Yesod is violet, the moon, the blending of pure red and pure blue. Now to Malkut, whose colors are usually given as citrine, russet, olive, and black. Some difficulty understanding the use of these colors until I talked with an artist whose knowledge of mixing colors clarified it for me. Olive is created by mixing red and green, russet by mixing orange and blue. Aha! Then comes black, the same color as Binah. Remember that Malkut sits upon the throne of Binah, and the color of the base of Malkut is black. There's a difference, however. In Binah, you are dealing with light. And there, black absorbs all rays. In Malkut, however, you are dealing with the physical world, with paint, and therefore the presence of all colors. See? Big, big thing right there. Write that down. You wouldn't want to. If you use a glossy paint here, you will differentiate easily between the two aspects of black. Citrine is not so easily dealt with, and it is with the deepest respect and apologies to Dr. Rigardi, Miss Fortune, Mrs. Gray, Mr. Butler, Mr. Knight, and Mr. Crowley that I submit the following. Citrine doesn't work. Well, that's not really true. Yeah, there's reasons why. It doesn't come to mind right now in the mind of Dr. Zeero, but here's what she says. Olive is a mixture of the three primary colors, and with predominating russet, a mixture of the three with red predominating. It follows that the quarter expressed as citrine should be a mixture of the three with yellow predominating. But citrine is lemon yellow, achieved by adding a touch of blue to yellow. There is no red. The color for this quarter, the result I get when I actually mix the colors is ochre, a mixture of purple and yellow. You can think of 4 possible explanations for the attribution of citrine. Before she goes in here, citrine had to do with, if I'm correct, it was the stone of the tribe of Dan, the lost tribe of Israel. And citrine was also the holy stone of Lu. You know, the god that looks like Lug, the Celtic god, the sun god, citrine, there. And it was a very important thing to the Druids. And also citrine had all kinds of holy properties that went back all the way to like Sumer and Mesopotamia. So there's a whole reason that it's there. And I don't know. Anyway, so she continues. One, a mistranslation somewhere along the line, instead of ochre, they went with citrine. A scholar of the Hebrew language might know a word for lemon yellow and a word for shade yellow-brown that are similar. 2, lemons were once upon a time a very different color. 3, a reader has told me about another citrus fruit called a citron. She had seen them in the Middle East, and they were more of an ochre than a citrine. The encyclopedia says they are greenish yellow, but the author doesn't know. But the possibility remains that the words citron and citrine were accidentally switched. It's one of those cute little curves the writers of old used to confuse the uninitiated on purpose. So those are her ideas on that. So in every other correspondence, she agrees with at least one of the experts, but in this one, she differs. The choice is always yours. Don't, by the way, feel restricted to drawing and painting. He embroidered a very beautiful tree on a natural muslin background. Another way is to create a relief plaque. Styrofoam balls cut in half, sealed with a water-based spackle, can be painted and glued to a background. The past can be wire or dowels cut in half. A very effective tree could be created with styrofoam balls or ping-pong balls put together like Tinker Toys. For that matter, you could use Tinker Toys, but you'd have a flat disc instead of a sphere. If the paths of the middle pillar are made from one strong piece of wire that extends beyond Malku, the wire could be inserted into a base. Alternatively, the wire could extend past cutter, be bent into a loop, and your tree could be hung from the ceiling. There's one idea she always wanted to try, but it would have to be big. She always wanted to do a collage of the tree with each sphere a separate collage of pictures of the correspondences, the magical image, the animal, the deities, and so forth. So she says, be creative. You might find an entirely new way to depict the tree. So, again, that's all from the book The Witch's Qabalah by Alan Cannon Reed. This is Dr. Zeero signing off. Please hit the subscribe button. Let people know I exist. I need help promoting this thing. I will continue doing this for a very long time until I probably drop dead from some horrific, freaky, ultra-mutated thing out there, as is the central problem. But anyway, good to see you. Have fun. Bye-bye.